So, Braxton, when you see that, like, where does your mind go to? Like, what are the things that you feel like, could maybe as a spectator, first of all, but then, like, as a player, right? Where you feel like this could go?
Well, two different ways. Obviously, the spectator point, you begin to go from passively watching something to actively, right? To like really interacting with something. And for me, it's always a big thing to, bring in your fans and your community a little bit closer and being able to harness that power to where if you watch me on TV, and you use IR code, I can kind of help direct what you see about me and where you go. And so you begin to paint that whole picture where you obviously can't on the field when you just see my number in a helmet. But now on your phone, you can go wherever I really choose it to and really harness that power.
Yeah, that's cool. And Brittany, this has been a while in the making, and you guys announced it this week, so congratulations. I'm curious how you feel like this. What does this moment mean for IR Code as as a product and as a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're trying to accomplish at IR Code is changing the way we think about visuals, and any visual. It could be a video, it could be a commercial, it could be live broadcast, it could be an object that's just a chair, for example, right? And that takes a lot of consumer shift. You will never need a QR code again. You'll never need to be able to be indicated. The whole world around you will be live. But to be able to do this and bring sports fans the opportunity to really be able to interact with the game that they love, I think that's something that every sports fan that I've ever known has craved. I mean, I grew up in sports. It has been a big passion of mine. I've worked in it for a long time. And I think the ability to be able to offer new experiences, whether it's being able to interact with your favorite player or being able to have that second screen experience that brings everything together that you're already doing on your phone, is something that is truly unique, but also something that we're already naturally doing. So for us, it's really a first big step in bringing something to market that we think is very intuitive, very much what we're seeing with consumer behavior already, but also something that's really designed for the fan and for the athlete and for the leagues.
Yeah, and I promise this is not one long commercial for IR Code, but I will tell you, having experienced the product myself, that, as I said at the top, it just works, right? And there have been many, 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 many products that have attempted to do some form of this over the years. I've seen it over the last 15 years, and what's remarkable about this is how it just seems like it just happens, right? And you can interact. I'm curious, Braxton, from a player standpoint, when you think about Apple Vision Pro or, sort of like, even I remember when they've had the first sort of like drone cameras, and the cameras,
That game, yeah.
Yeah, in the game that like would bring you much closer to the action. That was like blown away. Like what kind of tech do you feel like, how is tech kind of changing how you play on the field, right? Like for the spectator and for sort of the audience, right? Less so like, obviously there's a lot of technological advancement as a player, but sort of it's almost like the theatrical aspect.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the game's the game. I'm going to play that the way it's meant to be played. But obviously, we realize that there's cameras everywhere, there's microphones everywhere, there's things picking up everything that we do. And like you talked about the Apple Vision and like the Oculus, for instance, like for the first time ever, you're going to be able to sit on your couch and you're going to be able to act like you're sitting courtside. And eventually that'll be probably behind the plate for MLB and probably right where the coaches stand for NFL. So it doesn't change the way that we do things, but we understand that a lot is changing with technology. And even in our sport, I mean, there's talks to take some referees out of places, take the umps out, put a microchip in the ball and see if that's a first down or not. There's a lot of things that are happening and happening very quickly that can be good for bad or the game, but it's happening nonetheless.
Yeah, and also, but when you think about, so obviously you guys are trained, incredibly precisely to do very specific things on the field, and yet, like from a brand building standpoint or from like a player building standpoint, clearly, like the fan has never been closer to the player, right? And so, how does that change again? Not how you play football, but like again, just like who you are.
Yeah, well, again, we're able to build a community in a way like never before. right? And like obviously using the IR code instance, like I can kind of direct what I want them to know about me, you know, whether I have a foundation or organizations that I want closely, whether, you know, maybe I just want them to bet because I scored a touchdown and they want to buy my jersey, you know, like it's a very intimate way. And I think that it really builds, especially from the team's perspective, when you build intimate connections with your fans and with your community, it obviously builds a huge brand loyalty to the team and to you as well. And so everybody ends up winning on the organizational standpoint.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brittany, when you think about beyond just the device, right, and sort of the larger landscape of how fans connect with the game, the athletes, and so forth, like, sort of where do you think IR code is in that sort of, and just how do you think about it, not just with regard to your product, but sort of broadly?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that it's been very clear, if anyone's watching the research of everything, that sports as a cultural movement and as even a commerce movement is probably the biggest thing that's ever existed, right? Beyond music, beyond film, beyond television. If you look at the data just around sports, it's billions and billions of dollars of economic impact. It is twice the amount of engagement from a sports influencer or an athlete or a podcaster or a fan community that you would ever get from a traditional. We're working on a new creator program right now, and we just focused on localized sports teams to kind of build that community so that we could really bring this to life and really get the fans involved. The engagement levels on those creators was something I've never seen before, right? So I think that there is just this inherent power in sports that has existed for a long time, but now you're really seeing the crossover. And for us, I think the heart of that is the fans. You have to look at what the fans want. You have to think about the value that you're bringing to a consumer. We can't design technology just to interact with the game. We have to design it the way that people want to interact with the game. But there's also different types of fans, and you have to give them options. And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators that we have as a company is if you look at QR or CTV or QR codes or anything, it's one destination. It's not giving multiple consumers an opportunity or multiple viewer chances to see how you can connect. If I can scan Braxton on a screen, it could go to his socials. It could go to his style. It could go to his jersey. It could go to his stats. It could go to his highlights. Now there's the capability in 1 second screen through IR code to be able to access every single fan that you have and give them different curated opportunities. And I think that's the difference, right? So sports fans as a whole, that has to be the core of who you're talking to from a brand position, from a technology position. You have to make it work for them. They are the power behind why sports is so impactful.
Want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you know, for 2024, top TV ratings, the 68 top viewed shows this year, 65 of them were sports. All top 10 were NFL. And the only 3 were the presidential debate, the Grammys, and the Oscars. So just to expand on that, I mean, there's such a power in sports and obviously technology intersection where they have brought me on to help like talk about how you can harness that. And everything she said is absolutely correct. I mean, you have the most viewership, the most money out of any industry between entertainment and what in the world right here in your backyard. And now that they've found a way to start to harness it, it's empowering for me, it's empowering for brands, for advertisements, and even for teams.
I'm curious. I am curious, Braxton, what your like your view on engagement, because there is I think a lot of the magic of sort of being a creator and being in this social landscape is like people feel like they do have a one-to-one relationship with you, whether or not they ever meet you in person, right? So how do you think like technology can bring those people kind of closer to you, and then how do you sort of like manage that part of it, right? Because they're like just one DM away from actually making what they perceive to be real contact with you. Yeah,
well, there's great power in that, obviously, right? And they are in the new day and age. They're 1 second away from you, or one DM, or one phone call, or whatever it is. And I think there's a lot of things that I'm now hearing and that are new. Like this company 2 days ago, I heard got getting pitched, and basically it's to harness that, right? I could have a FaceTime with 10,000 fans from across the world, or I can have a one-on-one autograph session where they pick whichever picture they want in front of me. I sign it. We have a 2-minute conversation, and then instead of them, somebody walking in the house and saying, "Hey, I got this autograph from a website, or I got it from eBay or whatever," it's like, "Hey, I spent 2 to 3 minutes and we talked." We hung out. We talked about that big game, that touchdown, or whatever it is. And so I think it's very, very valuable in doing that and trying to connect with as many people as possible, because it goes a long way.
Yeah. Can I just add something to that?
Of course.
So you're talking about a version of personalization, right? And that's something we talk about a lot when we talk about it from a brand perspective. And I think that's where everything's going. You want it to be curated. You want it to be really focused on what I love, the connections that I want to do. And it was funny, last night we had dinner, which is great. And we were talking to Kantar, and we were talking about derivative J and ads. And then I was talking to someone at AWS, and I was talking about what they're doing for fan data. And the ability to combine those two and then to reach it through an athlete perspective, that's kind of the holy grail, right? And I think that that's a really interesting combination. You're seeing the same trend from a brand side as you're seeing from a personal side. And it's all around that same idea of fan community. So I think when we think about it from an IRCODE perspective, we're thinking about how do we design that experience in real time, in the middle of the game, all in one place that you can kind of do actively. So that's what's kind of driving product development, is what you're talking about, and how we're seeing those trends kind of relate to it as well.
Well, so that's really interesting. You just put a lot of thoughts in my head that I hadn't had before.
Sort of
But the sort of the circularity and of the data, right? And then it kind of all comes back to sort of optimizing your, I don't know, for lack of a better word, relationship with the fan, relationship with brands, relationship with your investments, like all of it, right? And so, like, how do you manage all of that, right? Like, yes, there are technology platforms, IRCODE being one of them, but like, how do you manage harness all of that to kind of, if you will, sort of optimize your presence? Because that I think is really important, because athletes do hold such a important sort of, play such an important role in how society functions, to be perfectly honest. And so I think, not to get overly dramatic about it, but I'm curious how you feel about, sort of all of the technology and bringing it all together for you.
Yeah, I think it's different for every person, right? And we are at the center of a lot of things around sports, entertainment, fashion, influence. And I think you end up having to pick your lane, right? You pick what you want to portray, whether it's fashion, which has been a huge part of sports now, especially over the last 5 years. There's such an appetite from a fan and consumer perspective of learning more. So if it's, what do you do for workout? What do you do for nutrition? And I think you really don't try to do as much as you can in the best way possible, because you can be overwhelmed. There's so many things that people want to learn about you or want to know. And so when you can find a certain ways or certain platforms to put it on in one perspective or in one place and have it mass produced, that's what you try to do.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, in some respects, I think that football players specifically, because you have to essentially be masked for most of your job, like it's kind of more important important to sort of really connect with the fans. And it seems like, I'm sure you're doing that, but like your colleagues and your teammates and so forth, like do they feel like they need to connect and be really active? And
yeah, well, that face mask drives a barrier, right?
Yeah.
You look at most sports and you see their faces. I mean, even hockey, which is kind of insane in its own sense, but you see their faces, so you feel a bit more connection. But football players, for the most part, besides a quarterback or the absolute star player, are less recognizable. So you do have to, and again, it's also the most people on any sports team there is. We have 53 on our active roster, 11 on the field at a time. But you have these basketball, obviously it's 5, and you might know 5 to 6.
Right.
Baseball 11, and so on and so forth, and soccer the same. So you do. I mean, for us, there is a little bit more of an urgency and a little bit more of a need to kind of put yourself out there and again, tell people exactly who you are and be recognizable, because it's a lot harder in our sport than most.
Does that explain Joe Burrow's suits? Anyway,
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I had to say it. Brittany, tell us as we wrap up here, kind of, sort of I candidly, I think going to live sporting events can be tricky sometimes because you're so used to the television sort of portal now, or being able to watch on your mobile device. Like, there is a world in which I'd love for like the live experience to be capturable too, right? Not just the TV one. But I'm curious, sort of like, as you look at this product, like where do you feel like this can go? You know, what is the horizon?
Will's teasing something. I kind of told him last night, but you know, with IRCODE especially, you know, television for us is an entry point. It is, our technology works exceptionally well with video. We're doing things in video that everyone has been trying to do for a long time and no one else can do. You could shop shows, you can do live sports, you can do commercials. We can take a spot of a commercial and we can make 5, 6, 10 experiences within that one commercial. You could shop the entire thing, right, in real time. So that's an area where we see an immediate need, an immediate value too. Consumers want that, right? So we're leaning into that behavior. But ultimately, the goal is everything around you. I think sports is a fascinating environment. You know, I've worked in sports for a really long time on the client side. I'm FanDuel for the last 4 years. And I think the tricky thing about it is that you need to have a respect and integrity for the sports, and not just for the sport itself, but for the athlete, but for the fan. It's tricky. And if you get it right, it's amazing. And if you get it wrong, it doesn't feel authentic and you kind of lose those relationships. So what we're trying to do is really put all the pieces together and learn as we go. But you will be able to interact with all different venues, live sports experiences in real time. So be able to really kind of scan even on the field. Yeah. And part of what we're looking at is how we solve some of the problems or the frustrations of people within those live environments, like skipping a line for a bar, or, you know, merch and having it delivered to your seat instead of having to wait on screen, or being able to have a whole fan store just by being able to scan someone like Braxton on the field. Yeah. So those are where we're really kind of leaning for, and that's the big picture. So if you guys go downstairs, join us for a drink. We actually have games that are playing downstairs. If you download our app, you can kind of see it in real time. We also have some setups. But right now for us, it's really about learning. We want the feedback. We want to understand how to make it better for players. We want to make it better for fans and for brands as well. So,
is there anything else you'd like to see IRCODE do for you, or for your teammates, or for the sport?
Maddie's right there. So just say
yeah, there he is.
He'll make it happen. That guy.
No, honestly, I think the interface is incredible. And, you know, again, I think, you know, you learn as you go and as you debut and all these things. But, you know, again, what we've had conversations of at length now seems to be groundbreaking for me. And again, lets me connect with whoever I need to, with me doing absolutely nothing but what I'm already doing. And I think that's a big thing. And, you know, optimizing your reach and your platform. And I think that's very important.
Awesome. Well,
One
okay.
last thing I'll say,
Yeah.
sorry. This is going to be live on Super Bowl. So we invite all of you to try it, to message us. My team, if you're in the room, just raise your hand. You can find any one of us to kind of hang out and say hi after this, and we'll talk more. We'd love to know what problems we could also solve for people as well, if you're trying to kind of really reach into sports marketing. But yeah, we're super excited, and thanks to Braxton for all of his
Of course,
support
thank you.
and
Thank you.
so,
Game prediction?
no.
Can you?
I can't.
You
I
can.
can't. Yeah, I'm not betting on it, but I can
Okay.
tell you what I think. I think if anybody can do it, it's the Eagles. But it's really hard to go against a team that somehow finds a way and has found a way all season and in the last 2 years. So I have them in a tight one.
Okay, that's good. It's good. You heard it here first, folks. Braxton, Brittany, you guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. And I will say the happy hour that is about to commence now is compulsory. It is not optional. You have to go down back stairs, front stairs, either way. We have
games.
We have solo
tailgate
cups.
games. We have solo cups. We have cornhole. We have all the
we
fun
have
things.
cornhole.
Solo
Come
cups.
on.
Yeah.
You know.
We're in solo
so
cups.
still it's time to pregame. All right. Thanks everybody.
Thank you guys.